to Worship, Grow, Follow. This is the podcast ministry of Gillum Springs Baptist Church. My name's Jamey Pruett. I'm the sometime host of this podcast, and I hope I'm the always pastor at Gillum Springs. But this is a podcast we've begun, and it'll focus on all of church life, really. Our catchphrase, so to speak, is Worship, Grow, Follow. And so over these series, we hope to cover all kinds of topics that will be beneficial for our church and any other churches or Christians that want to listen in. And so today, as we begin, we just want to begin by introducing over a few episodes the ministerial team that serves here at Gillum Springs. And so I'm honored today to be joined by three of the very best. In fact, I'll just go ahead and say three of my favorite colleagues that I get to work with. And we're joined today by Teresa. Teresa Mayo is our minister to children and families. Dick Spivey is our minister for senior adults and congregational care. And Jamey Patterson is our executive pastor. And so this is just going to be a roundtable discussion. And so, guys, I just want to begin today and get you all to tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you grew up, how you came to know the Lord. And if we could all do that, I guess, relatively in short order, then we can just start talking about whatever comes to mind. Does that work? I was going to begin with Teresa. Not only is she the lady in the group, but she is, I do believe, I know currently the longest serving minister. And we have a pastor, I think I've told you this, that served total 24 years, but he did that over 3 different periods. And so some people say you can't really count the 24 total. So anyway, I'm going to give you credit for being the longest serving minister at Gillum Springs. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
Tell us how, not how, but where you grew up and how you came to know the Lord.
All right, you did say this was only an hour total, right?
No more than an hour. So let me take my watch off.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
All right, so actually I just shared this with Ella, so it should be
really?
fairly easy to talk through. So I was born in Boaz, Alabama, lived there through first grade, and then moved to Kilpatrick, Alabama, and went to school at Crossville. My parents and my brother and sister and I lived there, and then a couple of things happened in my life. My mom moved out, and my mom and dad got a divorce. So my dad raised 3 kiddos by himself for a very long time.
How old when your mom left?
9.
9.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I did not grow up in church. I went to church for the first time at a vacation Bible school. I asked the Lord into my life there at Vacation Bible School just because I was blown away and amazed that there was somebody who knew me and loved me for who I was. Yeah. And so to know that and to know that he wanted to be a part of my life, and I was yes. Mm-hmm. So I asked the Lord into my life, asked him to forgive me of my sins, but I did not walk with the Lord. Does that make sense? So I knew the Lord, but I didn't have a walk with the Lord. Went to high school, went to church some because that's what my friends were doing, and that was, just part of my social life. Got married. My husband and I, Lee, we've been married 35 plus years now, and so we did not go to church to begin with, but no matter what I did for my kids, there was always something missing. And so the Lord finally just spoke to my heart one day and said, it's me. It's a relationship with me. You will never be able to give your kids everything they need until you introduce them to me. And so we began going to church the next Sunday. Seth was little. Kaylee Beth, I was pregnant with her when we started going. And from the first Sunday we walked in the door, from that point on, we were there every time the doors opened. Yeah. Grew up, went to Sunday school. We were in an adult Sunday school class, and I was miserable because I didn't understand everything they were talking about. Yeah. And so I just wanted out of there.
At that point?
So I was 20 when I had
20s?
Seth. Yeah, early 20s.
Okay.
Early 20s. And so we kept going, and I kept saying, Lord, I'm not going back. And he'd say, yes, you are. We'd go the next Sunday, and I'd say, Lord, I'm not going back. Yes, you are. So then a friend of mine came to the door one Sunday and knocked on the door and motioned for me and asked me if I would help her teach her kindergarten Sunday school class. I jumped at it.
Thus began
the
legendary ministry of.
Well, I don't know about that, but yes. So
well,
yes, that's where
hand
That's
of the
where my
Lord in
ministry
it.
started. And so he taught me the Bible at a kindergarten level, which is probably way above where I really was in the Bible. But he showed me through teaching kindergarten, first grade, second grade. And so, but yes, that's where my walk with the Lord began and how I got to where I am now.
Well, as the sometime host, let me take just a few minutes. Isn't the Lord sweet no doubt you had a challenging childhood. When you met the Lord at 9, how he began to write the story, not only that benefits you, but has benefited generations through this church. And I'm not just blowing smoke because we're on the podcast. I've said this publicly. We recognized you this past year for your last year for your. Was it
August,
2 years ago?
August was 20 years.
And so, really and truly, we do see a generation impacted by you. But to hear that story again, do you reflect on that? How good the Lord has been?
That's right.
To be reached in Vacation Bible School. And so, to have such a heart for it now. And then, once you determined to get in church, isn't it neat how he puts you in the place to get you started ministering, and that's where he's used you so effectively. So, well, praise the Lord. That's wonderful.
Amen.
Y'all can jump in if you've got observations. I really don't want to dominate.
Well, you are the leader.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very kind of you to say. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Dick Spivey, tell us your story, and then we'll come back around to time served here and talk a little bit about ministry.
Grew up in Columbus, Ohio.
So you're a Yankee.
Yankee.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I was suspicious.
40 plus years in the South. I'm now.
You're learning.
I'm now learning.
Bless his heart.
Very normal childhood. 2 loving parents. Both parents raised in church, but had drifted by the time we came along. 3 kids. Mother still wanted to take us to church, so we were the Easter and Christmas attendees. I remember those days. It was a Methodist church. But my daddy's love language, and his personality is a very strong one. His love language with me was athletics. Mm-hmm. And so really athletics became my God, if you will. Success, result-oriented life was mine, and I worked hard at it. He worked hard with me on it. I was successful in most of the sports I had, and went on to college for college scholarship and so on, and subsequently landed my first real job at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
Now, what kind of school is it?
That's sorry. A Roll Tide.
Okay,
Roll Tide. But it was not too long after that I met this beautiful young woman named Mary Holderfield, who is now my wife of 40 years. But as I got to know her and her faith and her mother became the first person to ever ask me, "Do you know Jesus?"
Wow.
So
were y'all married at the time?
We were not. We were dating. And
she's checking you out. Yes, right.
She was checking me out.
Yeah.
And of course,
who's this Yankee? Does he know Jesus?
Well, number one, So, but that's the first time I'd ever heard that, and I didn't know how to really answer it, to be quite honest. And so, subsequently we started going to church and started learning about some things, and then I gave golf lessons, of course, being a golf coach there at the University of Alabama, and Carl Wells was an associate pastor at First Baptist Tuscaloosa. And I was out playing golf with him one day. And we've been out there 2 hours or so. It's a hot summer day. And out of nowhere, he said, "Dick, do you know Jesus?"
Wow.
And so...
Did you say, "Have you been talking about my
That's right. It was at that point, that I think my faith journey would begin. And so the men of First Baptist Tuscaloosa really loved me into Christ, and subsequently surrendered to the Lord, asked him into my life, and followed with believer's baptism. But I've heard this story before. And this was my experience. It was almost as if after the baptism, everybody was praising and thanking God. And, of course, I felt my life had changed. But then I felt like I was on an island by myself. So as I look back now on all these years, I realized I was not discipled, or at least not very well. And I also heard somebody say one time, you're as close to God as you want to be. Mm-hmm. Well, because I wasn't discipled and people weren't following up with me very well, I straddled the world. I like to say I was straddling Jesus, because I couldn't get my foot out of the world. Mm-hmm. Part of me wanted Jesus and part of me wanted the world. And so that lasted about 10 years probably. More attendance, church membership finally, Sunday school finally, small groups. And I think God was really starting to work on me at that point. And it was, I'll never forget, April 4th, 1999, hotel room in Augusta, Georgia. I knew something was not right in my life. So I literally got on my knees in that hotel room and just asked him to show me where he wanted me to go. Wow. And a couple years later, he did.
How about that?
And kind of the rest is history. And so I followed his.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. But even in your story, do you realize the work of the Lord?
Amen.
Because you're so effective. This is your second stint here. Your first go around, you were our men's minister.
That's right.
And we're very intent on bringing men in, which I hear that in your story. Mm-hmm. But I also hear today, maybe in a fresh way that I don't recall before, you felt like you were on an island. Mm-hmm. And I see that in you. You don't want folks left on an island. You are so good at connecting with people, bringing them in, because you have lived that life, and you see now the benefit of being faithful in the church, the benefits of the family of God for the children of God is the way I might say
Absolutely.
it.
Can I add to that?
Oh, yeah,
I
please.
also see in that and appreciating that the fact that you said that while the Lord had his hand on you and talking to you and calling you, the world was also calling you back. And we think when we become Christians that everything's just supposed to line up and we've got that armor and nothing changes, but yet the world is still calling us. That's and right. Still beckoning and pulling at us.
Absolutely.
And it's a fight from that day on, because you've got your human nature and your spirit-filled nature, and whoever you feed is the strongest. Mm-hmm. And so it's still calling at you.
Absolutely.
And people forget that. They think they're weak or they've done something wrong when they still feel the world's call.
Yes, the whole process of sanctification, that's a real thing. It's a process. It's not a switch.
Absolutely.
Jeremy Patterson, tell us about you growing up and coming to know the Lord.
I grew up in North Alabama, and very similar. Our testimony of Teresa and I are very, very closely related. Grew up, my mother decided to leave when I was about 2-3 years old, left my sister and I with my dad. My dad worked hard. And then that was kind of our molding. My first Christian influence really was my grandparents. They lived across the street. They was really as much as a mom and dad to me as anything. But I remember going to church with them at a very young age, in small country church. Nothing against that, anybody listening outside of this. Sure. But the preacher seemed awful angry, and he was.
Well, so do I.
He was spitting, and it was something that just as a child, it was like, it terrified me. I was like, I don't know about this, and really had no influence. Like Dick's pathway to, sports was a way that I could get attention, and you get praise when you do things, and through that activity, that really what I was seeking. I can remember now looking back, I can tell you exactly what it was. Then I didn't know. I didn't have any kind of Christian foundation. So when I was 18 years old, I was dating a young lady, and one of the requirements for me to date her was to go to attend a church. So it was Sunday evening service, because Jesus, he really shows up on an afternoon or a midweek service. Right. We were sitting on a very back row, and I would have sat in the
vestibule
if there was anything else. And
I'll be on the front porch. Let me know when we're
But
done.
the Lord really was, he was really drawing me then. And man, I just held on for dear life. And I said, there's no way. one, I didn't know what it meant, right? I didn't really understand the working of that to start with. And it was like the Lord kind of turned me over to myself and said, okay, go do your thing. I'll see you in a few years. Went off to college and just really made a mess of my life, really. Success was a big thing. I think when you grow up in athletics, and especially when you grow up in a broken home and you're seeking for that awareness and acknowledgement, that kind of is what drives you. So I went into the career world with that same thing, and even though you accomplish success, it's still there's something missing. You know, I didn't know what that was, and then you fast forward that. I was living in Chicago and had moved back. I moved back to Birmingham for a job, and I had started dating. I met my wife now, and we were just kind of early on in relationship. And man, I had done everything that I thought that I could do to fix that thing, that hole, and I was just empty. And there was a guy shared the gospel with me on a Tuesday night. It's the craziest thing ever. I've never seen him since then. I surrendered my heart to Jesus. I tell people this a lot. When I came to faith, one, I didn't know anything about coming to faith. I just was broken to the point I had no problem understanding I was a sinner. The other part, the sanctification thing, I had no idea what to do, where to turn, where to go, any of that. Thankfully, my wife grew up in a Christian home, so her influence in my life was tremendous. But the Lord gave me a new heart that day, but He didn't give me a new brain. So that friction between those two, I didn't really know what it meant to be a believer. Amanda's influence in my life, we started reading, kind of praying. Fast forward, we get married. We did the same thing you guys did. We were playing church is what we were doing. We were in, out. I had an opportunity to go serve on my first mission team. A guy asked me, "Hey, look, would you be interested in serving, going and serving with us?" I was like, "Well, what does that look like?" You know, very skeptical. He said, "Well, we're going to do a baseball camp. We would love for you to go and help coach and train kids in baseball." And I was like, "That sounds cool. I can do that." Is this
really mission?
Yeah. Well, I didn't ask that.
That's what you thought, right?
To me, I was like, "Cool." But when I went, the Lord just really turned me upside down and kind of shook me a little bit. Instead of turning you inside out, I think he just revealed who He was in my life. And I think then, like, I was saved in Birmingham, Alabama. There's no doubt that is when I professed Christ. I trusted Him by faith, but I never made Him Lord of my life. And when I was on that mission trip that time, I surrendered lordship, the keys to the kingdom. I let Him have reins over my life. I had no idea what that meant. The same trip on the way home, the guy asked me, he said, "Hey, look, would you help me maybe teach a Sunday school class?" Very similar to yours, except I started at a junior high boys class, which is always interesting.
They did not love you at that church, did they?
Interesting enough, teaching that boys class, you say you learn on the same level. Most of those boys in that class were homeschools. So they knew 10 times more than I did. So I had to really work hard, and I think that Lord used that in my life to kind of catch me up in a sort of a sense of a sanctification. But I knew going in that class every day, those guys had been taught, they knew everything, and it was just it was an interesting experience. Fast forward a year or two later, I surrendered a call to ministry. I always felt like the Lord would lead me in youth ministry, just because you're naive when you're first called into ministry. You don't know what that looks like. Sometimes He leaves you in children's ministry for 20 plus years. And I can remember my aunt asked me, she said, "Are you going to preach any?" I was like, "Oh no, I'm not called to preach. I'm not. Student ministry, that's where the Lord's called me. That's where I'm going to be." But God's got a sense of humor, how He works things out. But, going back and looking at my childhood and then looking at when I came to faith, what the Lord has done in my life, it's just amazing.
It is.
How He not only stretches you, but then He uses you in ways that you could never imagine.
And I see that in your ministry. You've been here, This would have been your 8th year.
Yeah.
For those listening outside of our church, Jeremy's been here 8 years, but he has recently accepted a call to pastor a church in Lewistown, Montana.
Yeah.
And so this is being recorded in December. He'll be departing the end of January. But you've served as our missions minister your whole tenure. Started in a bivocational, part-time kind of thing, and then full-time. And then when you became executive pastor, you kept that assignment. And so I said all of that to say I see your story playing out in your ministry as you proclaim, profess, and display the value of serving and missions and calling people to that. So the Lord, man, ain't nothing that the Lord allows in our lives that's wasted. You know,
That's right.
That's exactly right.
That's a wonderful story. Am I supposed to tell my story? I
We'd
don't
love for
know.
you to. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to ask me?
Sure.
Okay.
So you're our pastor.
I'm the pastor.
You have been here how many years?
This year, next year, August, whenever this plays, August of 26, will be 15 years.
Okay. And when you came here, you thought Arab was the tiniest little dinky town you'd ever seen.
Yes, and how does that relate to my salvation story?
Well, I don't know.
Okay,
but
all right.
You were
You're
giving me
getting
the
there?
microphone. I
Oh,
was
I
trying
sure
to get you
was.
there.
I'm
So,
sorry.
okay, never mind.
I was.
Pastor,
I
just tell
had
us your
never,
story.
Well, I had never lived in a small town.
Okay.
And there was both, there was certainly willingness, but there was some fear. Because I grew up in Birmingham. Ashley and I met in Mobile. We served overseas in capital cities. We'd never lived in a small town. And I was nervous. Didn't know what it would be like. But it has been terribly sweet. The Lord's been so good. So, we're spoiled.
We are spoiled.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us your salvation story that wound up getting you here.
Thank you. That's a great question. I grew up in church. A little different from you all. I did grow up in church. My family was in the Inslee Baptist Church in Birmingham, the west side of Birmingham. West side. And so I grew up hearing, all the stories. I grew up knowing what church was, but I really didn't know Jesus. And I can remember my mother talking to me about faith and just making clear I would know when the Lord's timing was right. I had a pastor that I felt like he didn't try to pressure me, but he was pointing. A lot of your buddies are getting baptized, and I thought, well, that's great. And then I had people like I remember one night at the fair. Birmingham used to have a big fair every year, and I got separated from a group. I was by myself, and I guess I looked terrible as a kid. They started witnessing to me, and God bless them for their faithfulness. But anyway, my mom died when I was 11. And a couple of years after that, my dad started dating someone who he'd been friends with for a long time. Her husband had passed away, and she was involved in a different church. And I got plugged in there at a youth group, and it was thriving youth ministry. The youth minister, Sam McElroy, he was faithful to share the word, came to my house, shared the gospel with me. But it was during a revival service focused on youth. Doug Sager, who was, he pastored large churches in Tennessee. Doug was preaching, and I was 15. I was convicted. I knew I was a sinner, knew being a good kid didn't amount to anything. And got together with my pastor, and I prayed a sinner's prayer, confessing the Lord as Master and Lord of my life. And then 3 years later, surrendered to ministry. And that's a long story, so that's another time. Did you have any follow-ups, though, since I gave you the mic? I don't want to cut you off again.
You're trying really hard to take the mic back.
No, I'm content. Go for it.
No, so there is hope in that. You did not share the part of your story about where you were the terror of your church.
Yeah, well, I made all that. None of that's true. I can remember, anyway, I was the terror. I got kicked out of some nursery classes. I got kicked out of, back in the day, they did training union. And we'd go back on Sunday night for that. There was a particular night those teachers got together. I said, Joanne, please don't bring Jamey back. And I can remember she was so embarrassed and in tears. Like, how bad does your kid have to be?
How bad was the whipping when you got home?
Now, I'd never got, because my disobedience and acting out was so rare, I rarely got spanking.
Oh, my word. Okay.
I came along later in life, really and truly. I was the baby. I had an older brother, but 13 years older.
Wow.
And I really was the baby of the family. So I guess she just swallowed that embarrassment, but told the story frequently that they kicked Jamey out of training union.
But that lets us know that there's hope for every child.
Listen, I want to tell you, there's nobody beyond the reach of God.
I have grandsons.
And God's
and
love.
So
Hey, the terrors are the ones that become the greatest ministers, don't you think? I mean, really. Tell us a little bit about what you do here. When did you come on staff? What do you do? And just so our church and others might be aware of it.
Okay. So I am birth through 5th grade, but I have an amazing helper with birth through pre-K, Kaylee Beth, and so she kind of shepherds a lot of that ministry. So I get to focus on kindergarten through 5th, and then that's Sunday mornings, that's children's worship, Sunday school, that's Wednesday nights, and that's family ministry. So family ministry, we try to look at doing things for families to help them grow, to help dads and mom who did not grow up in church like me know how to disciple their children, to be confident in leading their kids to Christ and to a place where they're ready to understand that Christ is talking to them. And then I get to be a part of our women's ministry and lead and direct an amazing team who likes to love on our women. We bring women into our church.
Yeah. And now I know I've said 20 years. When did you start?
So I started part-time. I was serving at First Baptist Albertville. And
we stole you from First Albert.
You did.
The church. I was not here. I want to clarify. So, poaching is an effect.
That's not a bug.
We are not above. We've proven that again and again. God has been so kind.
It's crazy, isn't it? I started. I was part-time. Well, I was full-time there, financial secretary, and helping them with children's ministry. Wow. And then I came on part-time here. So I worked there during the week. Came here on Wednesdays. Came here on Sundays, and then up until that point, we were involved in another church that we actually helped build and start.
Really?
And so lots of ministry stuff going on. But, it was all, things have changed. That was 20 years ago, and children's ministry at that time was, how many events can you have, the best egg hunt, the best fall festival. It was more about what you were showing the community. And then over the years, so that was in December. And then in August, the church said, hey, we want you full-time.
Yeah.
So I moved to full-time in August. And then from that point on, for a couple years, until the Lord really got a hold of me and said, when these children stand before me, are they going to be able to, am I going to be able to say, well done, because they attended egg hunts and heard this. And so, you're laughing. It makes it really hard to talk about serious things.
It's a story. This is supposed to be conversational. So when I first got here, we had a conversation because some church was doing like a 10,000 egg drop from a helicopter. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Have we ever done a 10,000 egg drop?
We have not.
We decided
Thank you, Lord. We have not.
All I could envision was some of you old enough to remember WKRP when they dropped turkeys. All we talked about was kids getting hurt with eggs.
Hitting them in the top of the head. Now, I will say, those years were good years because the Lord did. Those events helped our community see our heart.
Absolutely.
And they helped them to know that we weren't just the big church across from Walmart. We were a church who cared about its people.
Sure.
And who cared about other people. So it did help change our perception in the community. But my heart's more about leading children, discipling their families. I don't know, I didn't know the Bible. I didn't know any of those things when we got into church, and that was very intimidating. And Satan used that. You don't know this stuff. Why are you going? Why are you even going? You know, the pastor would get ready to preach and say, open your Bible to this book. And I couldn't even pronounce the book, much less find it. You know, so Satan worked overtime, you know, using those things against me. So I want our kids to grow up confident and knowing that God loves them, that God's word is true, that it's one big story from cover to cover, and that and I want their moms and dads to be able to walk home and walk in the door and disciple them and lead them and grow with them if need be.
That's great.
I just want to say something to that. I remember I was not here very long, and someone said something about childcare, and she, like, she stands up and she's like,
my eyebrows
we don't do childcare here.
Right.
We do discipleship.
Yes.
And, you know, and doing missions here for all these years, I've got to be a recipient of that true discipleship of those kids that you've discipled over the years.
Right.
So as a beneficiary to that years of work of truly teaching them and growing them, man, well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, you second it, I'll third it. My grandkids came to Summerpalooza the last 2 years, and the oldest one just gave his life to Christ, and I'm very confident that the seeds that were planted in Palooza were a part of that. So,
Well, I'll fourth it.
Yes.
Second and third and fourth.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, as the pastor, I get to see these young families, and I have not, but I bet if we sat down and started counting those that came up through children's ministry here, and so they've not walked away, and they're back. And I mean, to me, I would just think that's a sweet, you know, for the Lord's glory. You know, your crowns are for giving back to Him, but what a blessing.
Yeah. So my oldest group, when I got here, Kaylee Beth, Hannah Rose, a lot of them were going into 6th grade, and we held 6th grade back that year. And so now I have their children. You know, Mason's kindergarten, Miles is 2nd grade, and there are lots more of those. The younger they get, you know, there's more babies and more children. So I'm getting to see that second generation, and it's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet.
Absolutely.
All right, Dick, you got saved, First Baptist
Tuscaloosa,
and in a hotel room. In what'd you say?
Augusta, Georgia.
Augusta. It was not a pimento cheese sandwich from the golf course.
but I had one that week.
But it was the
to
Holy
Masters.
Spirit.
No, but it was. And after that, it was about 2 years that the Lord directed me to Christian education. The door flew wide open, and I had a conversation, and I knew that it was the Lord because. Well, there's a lot of things that happened, but just a couple of funny, interesting things is that, first of all, when we had the discussions for me to get into that role as a Christian educator, I was making a reasonably pretty good salary at the University of Alabama to not so reasonable, very low salary there, and so we had to really just if we chose that path and we followed His call, then we would have to get rid of everything, our home, and we were on the lake, and we had toys and stuff, as many people do. And
how many pairs of boots did you have?
I had 2 pairs of boots.
2 pairs of boots. Okay, that's an inside joke for anybody listening.
But within 2 weeks of that, of putting a sign in the front yard, and the sidebar funny story was my wife thought I had gone crazy. She didn't understand, and she wasn't fully committed, I don't think. She loved seeing the change in her husband. Yeah. But she wasn't quite sure about all this, and but 2 weeks later, a guy came and offered us cash money for everything, bought everything we had, gave us enough to move forward. 2 weeks later, we hadn't closed yet on the house, but 2 weeks later I was playing in a golf tournament. And I should say that as a member of the University of Alabama staff, I was blessed to have a courtesy automobile. Yeah. So I had to give that back, of course, when you quit that job. And we didn't have an extra car and we didn't quite know what we would do. Played in a golf tournament, and I won an automobile. And I called Mary and said, "Hey, I won another gift at this golf tournament." And she goes, "Oh, gosh, another dozen golf balls or another umbrella." That was the joke. And I said, "It's nice. I'll show you when I get home." And I pulled up, and I'll never forget this. The 2 times I've seen my wife and how the Lord's worked through her. But she saw me pull up, and I honked the horn with that car. And she literally almost fell to her knees, and tears flew out of her eyes. It was that night she knew that God God had this, and we were going to be just fine. But the other part of seeing her was when I did rededicate my life, and I quit being a fan of Jesus, and I became a committed follower. Yeah. We went before the church in Tuscaloosa, and the same tears were flowing. So I praise God for that.
Before you go further, I just want you to know, you've given hope to every golfer that listens to this podcast.
There you go.
That God will answer prayers about a golf game.
Even through
sports
and athletics.
Was it on a Sunday?
It was not on a Sunday.
Okay,
that would have been really good, but no, it was a Monday. Yeah.
No, it was better that it wasn't on a Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He doesn't give good gifts if you're golfing.
If you're golfing on Sunday.
That's where I was headed.
That's good.
How'd you get into church ministry?
Christian education was great. Of course, I become more involved in church ministry through there. Served more. We became members of another church in Huntsville because I was working in Huntsville, Alabama with the Christian school. And I'll never forget this. We had a home out here near Arab, and this little man was spraying my yard and spraying for bugs and whatnot. And he got done, took his gloves off, and said, "Hey, you go to church?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, I do." He said, "Well, you might want to try our church. It's called Gillum Springs. It's over here in Arab." And my wife was really intrigued by that, and she says, "If a man spraying our yard would be so bold to share the gospel, or share that anyways, he would be bold enough to share the gospel." So we went to attend one worship service one Sunday. Yeah. And Mary got in the car for the 3rd time and began to cry. Really? And she knew after one time here that she found her home, her church home finally. And so we became members. That was 2014. In 2017, the church decided they wanted to expand the recreation department here. Yeah. And that's when you asked me if I wanted to be a part of a team. Yeah. I was a part of that team for our Recreation Outreach Center. And through all that, we talked about you need to pray about what's next in your life. And so we did. And so accepted the call to be the minister to men in recreation, and left for a couple of years to take care of my dad. And then he called me back.
Missed us so bad, he just called you back.
He just called me back. So,
now, let me just interrupt just a minute, because I need to clarify for the sake of the story. Okay. When did you and I go to Hogleg with Randy, where we presented you with our list of 7 or 8 things that we thought we could do with a gym here on campus? Was that before?
I was before.
Before the committee.
So probably 2016. Probably.
And you came back less than 24 hours with 2 pages. I just want the world to know.
That's true.
You had a much bigger vision, and it also gave a little more insight into your heart. Yeah. And so you were on the committee, and then as a result, the church was looking for another minister that would oversee that. So you left, you came back. And now you're senior adults, congregational care. Yeah.
Since I am such a senior adult now, it's fitting that I'm ministering to senior adults. So it's been a blessing, a true blessing. And the congregational care part, again, sometimes as you're new to church or new to different areas of church, you're not sure what to expect. But what a blessing it has been for me to be a part of people's lives when they're hurting.
Well, you do a great job.
Be a part of that. So.
Our senior adults, they heard you were back up here, and so even before Jeremy or I reached out to you, people were saying, "Hey, have you talked to Dick Spivey? Hey, do you think Dick would come back?" What were you going to say?
Plan. No, I just had 2 takeaways from his conversation.
Yeah.
Number one, God used a church member
Mm-hmm.
who loved the Lord
Yes.
to bring you here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a reminder for all of us. It doesn't matter where we work, what we do.
That's right.
God will use us if He will let Him
Amen.
to expand His kingdom.
That's right.
And then the second team, they came to you with what they felt like the Lord was doing, could do with that facility, but they had 6 things, you had 2 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So that reminds me that God
7
puts together a team.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, you had
That's
7
right.
things and he had 2 pages. God puts together a team because sometimes we only see part of a picture. And there's a
100%.
much better picture that when he pulls us all together, what we can do.
That's
To
great.
honor
Absolutely.
him.
That's great.
And with different backgrounds and different strengths.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a friend in ministry. He's asking questions about some folks and maybe some struggles. And I said, look, everybody's just got to know who they are. As the Lord made them, their experience, they got to be comfortable in that. But together, as a team, you know, the Lord uses and blesses that.
That's right.
So thank
Yeah.
y'all for sharing. Thank you for those insights. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
You just feel free to chime in. You make it better.
Yeah, thank you.
Like most things at Gillum Springs.
Amen.
How about you? How'd you get to Gillum Springs?
Well, you know, it's an interesting path. I was pastoring a church prior to coming here. We had resigned in 2017, in September of 2017. Just absolutely, completely exhausted. We
Yeah.
had been running as long and as fast and as hard as we could.
You were serving by vocation.
I was serving by vocationally. I was probably working about 60 plus hours a week at least. That's probably on the light side. Plus pastoring a church and doing some of the things we were doing. I was just completely exhausted. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. I was just tired. Resigned in September of 2017. Had no idea what we were going to do. My kids were here. We just thought, hey, you know, we feel like the Lord has led us here. So we jumped out of town for about 3 months as far as worship. We went and worshiped with a friend of ours up in Coleman, and just really trying to get our feet underneath us. And at the time, I knew Will Harbison, which was the studio guy here. I knew Will much better than I did you. I just knew you casually. I actually knew Randy better than I did you. And I remember us talking one time in an Upward thing. At the time, I was coaching. The whole time when we moved to Arab 11 years ago, I started coaching in Upward when I was pastoring another church. So we were involved in that ministry from the very beginning, or at least from my beginning of being here.
Which we ran at the junior high school.
That's right.
Yeah,
So through that ministry, we developed relationships and things. So I remember talking to you. I don't know if you ever remember this, but I talked to you and Will one time at the gym, and I just said, "Hey, look, my kids need to be plugged in somewhere. We're going to Coleman. We can't do that. Do you mind if we come?" And you were like, "Of course I don't mind. Just come and." You said this. You said, "Come and stay as long as you need to, but let me know when you get ready to go back to work." And you allowed us to do that. So it was really a time of healing and also just getting our feet underneath us.
Rest.
Still working at the same time, and then I remember when I was actually interviewing in 2 different churches for 2 different positions. And I don't know if you remember this, but I called you and I said, "Hey, look, let's do lunch." I said, "I just want to pick your brain, get you to pray with me." I presented that to you, and I said, "Hey, look, I need to make a decision on one of these, but I really feel like the Lord's going to leave us here in this town, and I have no idea what that looks like." And you said, "Would you consider coming on our team?" And I said, "I haven't considered that, but what does that look like?" And just in Jamey Pruett fashion, you said, "I don't know yet, but can you give me a couple of weeks?" You said, "Give me a couple of weeks." I think you asked, you said, "When do you need to let those churches know?" And I told you, and you said, "Yeah, give me a couple of weeks to put something together." So when you came back, and I would have came for nothing. So
I wish I'd known that.
So I served by vocation, or
Yeah.
by vote for a year. And in that process, this guy leaves, and I get to know this guy really well over
Yeah.
that same process. I get to hear his heart, hear his story.
Mhm.
So your story, when I stepped away from corporate, was an inspiration for me.
I bet.
Because when you, I jokingly say when I was in corporate, I used to make real money, and the church is taking really good care of us. So please don't hear that the church is not taking care of its people.
That, yeah.
But to do that was a step of faith that we had opportunities over years to do that. And it just didn't feel like the right timing, or one, I didn't have the faith to do it, or something,
Yeah.
And he used your story, and I have a friend of mine that kind of did the similar thing as well. So those two, I guess, examples in my life actually gave me the, God, you're really going to take care of this. And we stepped away from that and came here full time in the middle of a pandemic, which was the craziest thing ever.
Right.
I can remember asking you, "Are you sure we're okay? I can wait a little bit. I don't have to go anywhere." And you were like, "No, we're fine." And then we, shut down 2 other times and did all that crazy things. But
the Lord got us through.
That's right.
He did. He did.
Well, you've been a blessing here. I mean, I feel like I need to say thank you, and we'll miss you in the same conversation. You've just
it's been a great experience. We've seen God do some amazing things, and I think to watch the team grow together has been really that continuity. We're all very different. We come from different backgrounds. We're all very strong opinions, and to see how God uses those strengths as a team, it's been phenomenal. Best team I've ever worked with, and that's corporate. That's anything I've ever done. It's been right here.
Yeah. We've got something special. Somebody said that recently.
Well, I think it's just because of, in spite of our differences, the Lord uses those strengths of those differences.
Sure.
And I think it's just a unity of that. Obviously, your next hire is always the most important.
Yeah.
That's been our thing when we hired this guy,
Yeah.
and Jonathan, Matt, all those things. Your next hire is always your most important hire.
Yeah.
So it's been a tremendous experience. We can't take credit for anything that God's done here.
Sure.
It's only by His grace that we've seen what we've seen and experienced what we've experienced.
Well, I would say thank you for letting Him use you here,
As we all would.
and we will miss you.
Yeah.
But we're on Team Patterson, and
Good.
you're forever Gillamites, so we'll miss you, but we still love you. And no, this is not the end. Next time I come to Montana, you can drive me across the state and never let me see any wildlife.
Carry you to a national park.
Well, we'll believe that when we see it. So, anyway.
But I think, as I look, as we always reflect, hindsight's always is much clearer. That step of faith, stepping out of corporate and really committing to see what the Lord's doing in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and then experience what we've experienced over the years has really brought us to where we are.
Yeah.
Made
So
this
that
step
helps.
much easier.
That helps us make this step,
Sure.
even though it's a little crazier and a little more terrifying.
Yeah.
But each little step gets us closer
It
to the
does.
bigger step.
It does.
It makes it easier to do. And I think, talking about our team, why we're so special, I think we do a lot of agreeing and a lot of disagreeing. And as Jeremy said, we're all very strong. But at the end of the day, when we go home, we all know it's not about personality, it's not about position, it's about everybody wanting the best for this church
Sure,
and
yes.
the best for the ministries.
Yeah.
And that's why the next morning we could look at each other in the eye and say, hey, how are you? And
Exactly.
love each other, keep loving. Because it's not about people, it's about what the Lord's doing through the church.
Yes, and in ministry there is that whole aspect. You have surrendered to another master, and so that which we do, we're not doing for ourselves.
That's right.
But now you talk about a strong team. Recently, I just kind of backed up. Dick and I both backed up and just watched everybody. We have a team of leaders. We've got a team of opinionated people, and but we love each other. And we just everybody's serving in their capacity, and it's working. And the Lord has been very kind. I think we have something very.
But it's not
very
silos.
special here.
It's
No, that's the other
capacities.
thing.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, hey, what can I do to help yours be better, and what can you do to help me be better?
And I'm glad you said that, because I think we're doing 2 more of these so everybody has a chance to share these stories. But yeah, we're not siloed, and that would be a goal of mine always, to never see a siloed. I mean, you're the best children's minister around, and I love all that you do here, but I also love the fact that you will go over and help set up tables for an event that's not yours.
Begrudgingly most of the time.
Begrudgingly, but you only say that on the podcast, so that's a benefit. And we do. I mean, really and truly, it's for the greater good. It's for the Lord. It's for the sake of the church, and I think if we keep that vision, it'll be healthy. So we're just about time.
Wow. That went by fast.
It does. It always does. But is there anything you're just burning to get on the table? We got maybe 2 or 3 minutes before we say farewell.
I would say, especially with me, departing here in a month, I would say from a church perspective, this is not this team. It's more about the church. Is continue cultivating that whole sending unit. Mm-hmm. Just because you look around, I've asked myself this question 1,000 times: is, Lord, why do you keep sending people here? And as we have been able to continue to send people out, from 76-year-old ladies to 60s. Yeah. And now we've seen a multitude of people that continues to be pushed out for the gospel. Yeah. Please maintain that. Just get a hold of that and just put your yes on the table. Here I am, Lord, send me. And just watch what the Lord can do with your life.
Amen. I hope that's the culture we've got here.
It is.
I have no doubt.
Well, and our adults do not realize that when we go and when we talk about going and we come back and share what we've done, our kids are listening. Yeah. Our teens are jumping in and being a part, but our kids are listening. Mm-hmm. And it's not, wow, we do that every once in a while. This is a part of what I get to do as ministry. It's expected of them to do those things and be a part of those things. It's not just a one-off thing, but it's part of who we are as a church. It's our DNA.
Right. Awesome. Well, I'll just say it's a joy to serve with all of you. My life's been enriched and is continually enriched, and we appreciate y'all so much. So thank you, friends, for joining us on this episode of Worship, Grow, Follow, a podcast of Gillum Springs Baptist Church. We hope you've enjoyed getting to know these ministers a little bit better, and we look forward to getting to meet all of our ministers that serve here at Gillum Springs. I hope you have enjoyed it. God bless you, and we'll see you around this table the next time.